female, with exceptions, I don't know, but they don't believe in that. They think that everyone should talk in a monotone voice and make decisions together and not say anything that offends anyone. And no one should say he or she because that's a gender issue, and gender is a choice. And I said, well, you know, I don't agree with that either, right? I said, I'm a man. I'm a man, you know? Thank you. I hope that y'all are all agreeing that I am a man. But, okay, so I'm having all these experiences, right? And I start to have a real issue with the majority of the folks I'm dealing with on the left. And one of the issues I have is in the way that they portray things. Like, these are all the people who are my heroes, and then I did something that was, I guess, kind of courageous. I mean, I just did it because these were my friends in New Orleans and I wanted to rescue my friends. And all of a sudden I have media attention, and all of a sudden I'm in this position of leadership and co-founding an organization, which I didn't feel qualified to do at all, but we did it because we had to do it and it was in front of us, you know? And like, I start to realize that all of a sudden the people who I'm hanging out with are the people I've been looking up to for years. They're my heroes, they're my elders. And all of a sudden I've accessed the halls of my heroes, and the people who wrote the history books that I read and based my worldview on and I worked so hard for so many years, I'm spending time with them now. They're in my life, you know? We go eat together. We go and have a beer together. We go have coffee together. And what I started to realize was they were completely full of it. They felt like they could shape whatever message they wanted to in whatever way, because that way society would correctly take the message properly and it would have the correct result in society. That's scary, and that's what we see on a large scale. But that's what I got to see in this small scale. And I started to notice in this area where we had no government, that we couldn't create something better than what had been created by our founding fathers. We couldn't. If I left town for 3 days, there was a coup, people tried to change every program, and I was trying so hard to institutionalize checks and balances so everything was consistent and stable, right? But I couldn't. I couldn't. My mind couldn't. And the best minds on the left, they all came. They couldn't either. What we created was nothing like the stability and the brilliance of our system in the greater country. And when I realized that those anarchists who would show up and try to take over the kitchen and shut it down, and they try to do that and take they do everything to protest us and shut us down because I was a white male in a position of leadership, and they didn't like that. They needed to be a queer woman in a position of leadership, which is fine. I don't care if I don't actually care if there is one. But that wasn't what happened there, you know? But see, they didn't like that. So since they didn't like something, they felt entitled to come and destroy it and to burn it down. And they tried. So the next thing you know, me being a person who hates the pigs and hates the FBI and hates America and all this stuff, I found myself replicating every system of government that we have. I had to have a show of force. I had to have people who would go and make sure that these vital interests in our organization, who the residents depended on so much, I had to have people who would make sure that they were safe. So the next thing you know, I had to come to the realization that there's a reason there's police, there's a reason there's an FBI, there's a reason there's all these things that I've disliked my entire life. There's a reason there's leaders. There's a reason there's a show of force, you know? So I began to realize this, and then this one police officer named Captain John Bryson, who was the head of that area of town and was trying to get it back in order, he called me one day and he said, you know, Brandon, I was driving around my area and I was thinking about how much I dislike you. I said, wow, you know, I was just thinking how much I dislike you too. And he said, but I'm having a hard time disliking you because I just saw all these youngsters running around filling prescriptions for all the elderly people in our neighborhood who come back. And I said, yeah, that's what we do. And he said, well, I have a hard time disliking you when you do that. And I said, well, I have a hard time disliking you when you're talking to me like this, John. And so Captain Bryson then became Chief Bryson. And we had a pretty good relationship. He became a person to me because he and I, we started a women's shelter together. There was nothing available in New Orleans after the storm, so we started one. And we didn't take federal funds. We did good stuff, you know? And people would say, well, come and thank you. We did good stuff. And so working together to help people, this guy became a person to me. And so all of a sudden, this guy who was a pig, he wasn't a pig anymore. He was my friend. He was a person. See, there had been this dehumanization that I began to realize that the left uses. There's a dehumanization, like, why are you a racist? Are you a racist? You're not a racist, but they call you a racist. Why do they call you a racist? They call you a racist because when your ideas stand next to their ideas, and when the history, the true history of your experiences and what you believe in stands next to their history, your ideas win because they're more logical and they're sounder. They're more sound. So they have to dehumanize you. They have to. And just like they have to dehumanize law enforcement. They have to. And that's what they did. But once that broke down for me, it was all over. So I had a lot of experiences. Some I won't get into. I got invited to Venezuela. When I went to Venezuela and I got the government-sponsored tour, that was actually provided by US tax dollars that Global Exchange takes, right? That's Medea Benjamin. And then they provide these tours through Venezuela, through the barrios, so you can see the good benefits that have come from him socializing the oil industry. The thing is that when I stayed a little longer, I began to realize that these other barrios who weren't on the government-sponsored tour, the poverty I saw there was, even in the worst dredges of Hurricane Katrina, American citizens did not suffer like those people suffered. They did not. And so ultimately I refused the money. I refused the resources they were going to give us. I decided not to. And a lot of the residents that talked to me, they said, Brandon, we love you, man, and we support you, but we support you in spite of your politics, not because of your politics. We support you because of what you're doing, but we don't like your politics. Like, I don't want my home rebuilt if it's going to have to be for money from the Ayatollah, I don't want that. My kid's in the military, my kid's a cop. So all of a sudden this all broke down for me. And it ended up with me, there's a lot that happened in Venezuela I'm not getting into. I probably will someday, I just don't want to right now, and there's not enough time. But I ended up getting back to the US, I kissed the ground, and I decided I was going to get away from the organization I was a part of. I decided that I wasn't going to do it anymore. But this is where things got interesting, because even though I got away, and I was able to get a small place on 2 acres in Texas, and where I now have 2 goats, 2 pigs, 20 chickens, and a dog. Even though I got away, when I was there, and we were all so radical, all of these relief organizations from around the world, and NGOs, they sent people to talk with us. Because they thought we were a resistance movement, and that we were going to set up our own government and declare independence, and kind of stuff that sounds crazy now, but they were trying, We were trying at the time, I guess. And so I knew a lot about all these different NGOs and resistance movements around the world, and they kept coming to me and talking to me about stuff and asking me to participate in stuff. And one of them was a man named Riyad Ahmad from the Palestinian Children's Welfare Fund. And it was the largest Palestinian NGO in the United States at the time. And they sent a lot of money to Israel for Palestinians, and they did so legally, but he apparently had some problems with the FBI before. And he was involved with CARE. CARE? Yeah. Okay. And so he approached me about a way to get between $200,000 and $500,000 to that region illegally, secretly. And I said, well, Riyad, why do you need to get money there illegally? What's up? And he said, oh, Brandon, you went back to your white privilege. I said, my white privilege? Okay. He goes, you'll come back around. I said, all right. What do I do here with this? And I decided, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I got to think about it, because in my world, you just did not go to the FBI. You did not do that. You did not talk to police about something like that. And then my mom's pastor sent me a video for no good reason, just sent me the video. And it was a video of the first responders in Israel. And it was when they walk into these places that have been suicide bombed for the first time. And there were little kids' body parts all around, excuse me, but there were. All over the place, blood all over it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do something about this guy. And I did. And the FBI ended up raiding him, raiding his home, raiding his secret storage that I was able to tell him where it was and find out where it was. And that man decided to kill himself. And I'm sad he's dead. Yeah, I'm sad he's dead. It's okay, Israeli kids are living today. There are people who have their grandchild who's probably 4 and 5 years old who aren't dead today because that man is not doing what he was doing. And so I was honored to participate with the good work of the FBI in that case. I was very honored. And after that, I decided to work with them on other cases. And so I spent the next 2 years undercover with the Joint Terrorism Task Force, specifically the International Terrorism Division of the FBI. And I did that. And I did a lot of things that I'm very proud I did. I didn't do anything I'm not proud of. I only talk about the things that have been made public. I'm not going to damage an investigation or damage, risk somebody's cell phone stuff. But the significant thing that occurred, the most significant thing that did become public, was I was asked to work on an investigation at the Republican National Convention in 2008. And I decided I would. And the reason I decided I would is because a group of people were going around the country, a group of anarchists. They called themselves the RNC Welcoming Committee. And they were going around and they were saying that we are going to organize this country to shut down the Republican National Convention by any means necessary. And they tried to. They really did try to. But here's what was significant about that, is when they organized themselves, you had this group of anarchists going around the country, crossing state lines, trying to get people and encourage people, showing videos of Molotov cocktails being thrown, handing out addresses and maps of the city where there are corporate targets or businesses that support Republican causes. And they began to hand those out. And they asked people to organize in a way that was 3 groups. They said, would you organize into red, yellow, and green groups, okay? So the green groups were the moderate liberals who wouldn't realize that they were being duped. It'd be like if I said, everybody come to this side of the room, and y'all did it just because you think I'm a nice person. And then I said, now everybody come to this side of the room. Now you're doing that just because you think we're playing a game or we're doing something, but imagine that I'm using the noise to hide a bank vault being picked or something, like that kind of thing. That's what they were using the liberals for in the green group. And then there was the yellow group. And the yellow group were the people who were going to get arrested, right? So they were going to sit in the roads and chain their arms together in PVC pipes to make sure that the buses of delegates could not get into the convention, therefore prevent those Americans